Welcome to the Gurge, Amplifier Modification Edition. In this video, I'll discuss the bias mod that I'm going to do on the Mesa Express 525. This is the stock circuit here. The stock circuit takes a negative voltage, which is furnished by this half-wave rectifier, and it goes through a voltage divider to arrive at the voltage that gets furnished to the cathode of the power tubes. This side of the voltage divider is a 15K resistor, R93, and it's located here on the amplifier. The negative voltage comes in this side of the resistor. I don't have the other side of the resistor pictured, but it goes along this trace to these two resistors and to this pad right here. These two resistors are R55, which is a 22.1K resistor found here, and R54, which is a 15K resistor. You'll see on the schematic that they're in parallel. Together they make approximately an 8.9K resistor because there are two resistors in parallel. There's two ways to change the bias with this circuit. One is to increase the value of these two resistors, and we're going to collectively call this one resistor because it functions as one. So we can increase the resistance of the 8.9K resistor, or we can lower the resistance of the 15K resistor, which will result in a more negative value. So it sounds like we're raising the value, but in fact we're making the value more negative, which is making the value smaller. So it'll be a smaller negative bias furnished to the amplifier. We're going to do that by replacing these two resistors with a potentiometer, a 10K potentiometer wired as a variable resistor, meaning that one of the pins will be disconnected. We'll use the wiper as the variable value, and then the top part of the resistor will be connected the same as these two resistors in the voltage divider. We're going to use two 15K resistors in parallel, and together they will form a 7.5K resistor. So where this was approximately 8.9K, we'll have a 7.5K. If we roll the variable resistor down to 0K resistance, we would have a 7K resistance in the circuit, or 7.5K resistance in the circuit right there, which would allow us to bias very cold running tubes. If we increase the variable resistor up to 10K, we'll have the equivalent of a 17.5K resistor here, and that would move the bias voltage very far away from zero, or further away from zero, and allow us to cool down some hot running tubes. I believe that this will furnish enough of a swing in resistance to change the bias voltage and allow us to use hot running tubes and cool them down, or very cold running tubes and warm them up a little bit by changing the bias with this variable resistor. So I'm going to remove these two resistors just by lifting them off the board. I'm going to try to put heat shrink over them, but I may end up removing them completely. And then I'm going to use these pads, one for the 7.5K resistor, the two 15Ks in parallel, and one going to the potentiometer. I think this is going to give us enough swing in voltage to use very hot tubes or very cold tubes, or somewhere in between. Now there is a side effect of changing the bias in that if we cool the power tubes down, they're going to be passing less current. It's going to have the effect of raising the overall B plus voltage in the amplifier. That voltage will be on the power tubes. They'll have more than I think it was 390 volts I measured with the stock circuit, so they may go upwards of 400. And because that current is not being consumed by the power tubes, that will be passed along down to the preamp, and the preamp will be running with a higher voltage. All of that should actually result in the amp running a little bit cleaner, or sounding a little cleaner. The goal, of course, is not to have it sound sterile and lose the benefit of having that great tube sound. So we'll find out when we get it installed how this actually sounds, because I think it's going to actually sound pretty good. I think the tubes are running too hot, and at least we can experiment and find out what it sounds like when they're cooled down. We can always run it as hot as it was with the stock circuit if I find out that it doesn't sound that good, but I think it will sound all right. I generally like the sound of power tubes running a little bit cooler. EL84s do tend to sound good when they're slightly hotter than 70%, but we'll be able to experiment with it when we get it in the amp. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the garage when we make this modification. If you like this kind of content, please subscribe to The Gurge. I'll see you soon.